See what happens. All right, class, welcome to week 7. Yes, Gildo's on it. We are talking about nose to tail, the whole animal, utilization, offal. We talked about this briefly in week 3 when we were also talking about full animal utilization. We talked about how that relates back to sustainability because we're reducing waste. And so this whole week is about reducing waste as well and utilizing parts of the animals that sometimes are thought to be, well, second thoughts, right? When we think about animal utilization, we really are focused on the main muscle parts, right? Your leg, your breast, your thigh, your ribs, depending upon the size of the animal, right? Those larger parts. But we're missing out on all the other parts, right? We talked about skin, bones, feet, nose, tail, ear, heart, liver, intestines, stomach. And we are going to start talking about the brain. Exactly, the full head. All right. Guess what? All of these parts of the animal are incredibly delicious if cooked and prepared correctly, but they take a lot of knowledge and understanding on how to cook them, how to prepare them. It's not just to take a piece of a muscle, throw it in a pan, add some fire, and we're good, and we're done in 10 minutes, right? This takes a lot of processing to the items. For example, let's take it a step back here. Who has ever had a hot dog or a sausage? Right? Pretty much everybody's eaten a hot dog or a sausage, right? Well, what if I were here to tell you that you have already been eating these odds and ends and bits and pieces of animals since you started and until the day you stop eating a hot dog or a sausage, okay? Because guess what? That's going in, right? That's where a lot of those odds and ends pieces are getting thrown in. They're getting blended. They're getting, in a massive ratio, right? Flavors coming through and utilized. What about that casing? Real sausage. What is real sausage? What type of casings are used? Intestines, exactly, right? Now, if we think about the intestine and we think about, all right, we know what that process is. That's part of our digestive tract, right? So what's going to be the first step to getting the intestines ready for utilization in a food place?
Cleaning them.
Cleaning
them well.
Right? So we're talking about a lot of rinsing, flushing it with water, salt, all right? Different types of solutions going into these, all right, intestines so that they are ready for stuffing. Now, what do you think the main difference between a natural casing, because I'm sure you've all seen that on a sausage, right, with natural casing. What do we think the main difference between a natural casing versus a synthetic casing is going to be like? What do we think? Texture. What else does it add to it? That snap. Exactly. This snap and texture is what seals that in. Real casing, natural casing ends in the most beautiful types of finished product because you get that crispiness around on the outside of that sausage, right? You get a much better snap. You get flavor, you get texture. They're pretty neutral, but it's there subtly, all right? Now, who's ever made I'm going to say proper, but there's so many proper ways of doing anything. Who's ever made gravy? So let's talk about, we're at Thanksgiving and we've got the big turkey and we're pulling out the gizzards and the neck and the heart. Now, what do we do with that? Do we throw that away? No way. Why would they be giving that to us if we should just throw it away? Doesn't that not make sense? Why wouldn't they just throw away that way to begin with if we shouldn't be doing anything with it? They're giving that to us for a reason. First of all, who bought the bird? I want the insides, all right? Second of all, guess what? Really tasty, full of nutrition, full of B vitamins, selenium, manganese, minute minerals, all right, that are needed in the body. Okay? And what do? You start making, maybe you simmer those gently, right? The neck, the heart, the liver, the gizzards with some celery, simmer that, right, for a while. Then you're gonna wait till that all breaks down. Then you're gonna use those pan drippings, blend it all, and now you've got this delicious, full flavored gravy. Okay? Now let's see what else. Who here is a fan of cuisines from around the world? I'm a huge fan of that. All right, so let's start talking about some delicious items right now, because the first and most important thing to think about is every single cuisine and culture is utilizing offal. Because if you don't, people are gonna go hungry, all right? So first I wanna bring up one that's super cool. This is kind of my favorite example to pull up. We've got a ton, but this is one of my favorites. This is made around the world. Who's ever heard of black pudding or boudin noir? Anybody? A few people? Yeah. All right. What I'm talking about is blood. Yet another byproduct of a slaughter, right? When we slaughter an animal, they lose blood. You capture the blood. The blood is then utilized to make other products, whether they're sausage like this, known around the world. Look at, this is my favorite way of showing you all. Ready? So first of all, we've got this tasty looking sausage, and you'll see that there are different variations, different cuts, different styles. Some are brighter, some are darker, some have little chunks in it, some have little cuts of fat in it, others have rice. Okay, well, check up top. So here's just the start of all the countries that have a blood sausage: Spanish, Korean, Argentinian, English breakfast, Irish, Puerto Rican, Polish, Portuguese, French, Scottish, Italian, Estonian, Dominican, Tibetan. How many more? Colombian. Literally every single country pretty much has this. There's even certain, let me think of what this is called. In some Asian cuisines, they take the blood, and what do we know that blood has a lot of it in it? What does blood have in it?
Iron.
Iron, nutrients, right? It's also, it will coagulate, right? What do we know that coagulate means, right? It's gonna stick together. So there are, in some regions, I had this soup once, and I was like, I don't know, I'm a little worried about it, because it was like, here's like duck blood tofu. And so basically they were cubes of coagulated blood in this really spicy soup, okay? Now, did I love it? I preferred my other dishes that I ordered, but I certainly did taste it, okay? And I just said, you know what, this texture isn't really for me, right? So in that style, I didn't love blood, but do I love blood, blood sausage? Totally, all right? So there are gonna be different times and techniques and maybe just presentations of when you may like one organ in one dish and not in another. Okay, now, who's ever heard of the soup called menudo? Has anybody heard of menudo? I'm gonna bring up some visuals for everybody so that we're all on the same page. We got a few hands up. Those that know what menudo is, what is the main offal that's utilized in menudo? Tripe, I saw somebody had it, yep. All right. Let me pull up both of these for us. Tripe is fantastic, again, if prepared well. So first I'm going to give you the visual of what of menudo looks like and another dish that uses tripe. Here we go. Cool. So let's get this up. Here's a quick look into menudo, the soup that hails from Mexico. All right. As you can see, a very hearty looking stew, served with, different vegetables perhaps, but that main thing right there is tripe, which is this. Kind of looks like a honeycomb, all right? This is when it's raw. Now, again, what do we think that's so important here? Cleaning it, prepping it. You need to make sure that you're washing this very thoroughly, getting into all those little crevices. And then when we cook it, we need to cook it nice and low and slow so you get this beautiful texture that you're not fighting against, okay? Here's a look at a classic Italian dish, trippa alla fiorentina, all right? Also, highlighting tripe. And as you can see, almost always they're slicing this into smaller pieces and they're cooking it nice and slow. As you can see, this comes with a nice tomato sauce, usually served with peas as well. Oopsies. And we've got the menudo, served with that nice red slow stew with chili and broth and garnishes. All right. It is, I'm just making sure here. It is a delicacy, all right? But it also takes a lot of patience. These are slow cooking items. Who's ever had, I just want to keep on showing you these fun things. Who's ever had another one of my favorites, tacos de lengua. If you ever go to a good quality, like a good taqueria that has heavy traffic, I highly suggest checking out the tacos de lengua. Does anybody know what that is? What is lengua? Anybody know?
Tongue.
Tongue, exactly. Now, do these tacos look delicious or am I just hungry? Because I think they look fantastic. Does anybody else know what is the tongue? What's tongue in the body in regards to how would we define it? What would it class? What would fall under? What class? Is that a bone? What is that? It's
Muscle.
a muscle. Exactly, right? One of our stronger muscles, okay? So we eat animal muscle all the time. Does it really make a difference if it's coming from the butt or the tongue or the shoulder or the ribs? Now, to prepare lengua, tongue, you have to simmer that for a while. Then you're going to have to peel off the casing, right? There's a hard outer part. And then you get into one of the most luxurious types of meat around town in the animal. Tongue cow, beef tongue is fantastic. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Well, like, really, chef? Yeah, guess what? Stuff is normal, it's delicious, and if cooked and prepared properly, it is a delicacy. And makes up cultures and cuisines food. Who's ever had chitlins, right? Who's ever had, right? Yeah, who's ever had fried chicken livers? That's one of my favorites all time. Yeah, fried chicken livers, right, Natalia? Yeah, fried chicken livers are fantastic. To me, that is the, let's baby step into the world of offal, because you're gonna fry those up. You're gonna have a dipping sauce. It's crunchy. It's kind of like really strong leg meat. All right, like mineralized leg meat. All right, like extra gamey, but it's great if prepared properly. Now I know Chef Lee has other thoughts about her experience with liver, and she'll get a chance to share her side of the story as well in just a sec. But what I'm getting at here is you're going to have opportunities and times as a chef when you need to know how to prepare certain ingredients and products. It doesn't mean you're going to love every single one, right? Everything you cook, you're not going to love, but doesn't mean you have to know how to execute it and how it should taste and what it should look like. 100%. I'll tell you what else. Ooh, somebody's talking about liverwurst. Don't even get me started. I love it. Okay, if you know how to take these cuts, now let's get to the bottom line here. What do we think about liver, offal, these cuts? Are those expensive cuts, or are they a little bit lower priced? Pretty low, right? So now, what if I told you that you could take cheap chicken livers? You're buying them for nothing in the restaurant industry, right? And you're going to be able to transform that into a high-end classical French dish, which is pâté. Classic French cuisine. Yeah, you turn that around and now you sell it for a pretty penny. All right. It's pretty incredible. So point is, we have to try everything. We have to go in and say, hey, with open minds as chefs. We can't just say, that's gross. Well, first of all, you're closing your mind to the opportunities of experiencing different textures, different flavor profiles, understanding different cultures and cuisines. And you're really closing yourself off to like a ton of different experiences. I'll tell you this much. When I was working on a farm in Spain, and we slaughtered a pig, okay? A matanza, where we slaughter the pig, and then literally every single thing is used. So the pig is slaughtered, you catch all the blood. That's the first process. That's going to make the botifarrón, all your blood sausage. The legs, what do we know that comes out of beautiful pig legs from Spain and Italy? What's the delicious thing that you see hanging from restaurants? What is that called when we cure a leg? Ham, yeah. What else? Prosciutto, exactly. Okay, so what do we do with that leg? We coated it down with salt and a little pepper, and it gets hung up to start curing and drying. All that blood is going to get turned into massive buckets of blood sausage. The head is going to go into a large pot, okay, and slowly simmered, all right, until literally all that meat is falling off the face. And you're going to make a thing. Has anybody ever heard of a thing called head cheese? Head cheese. I'm going to show you. All right. Now, some people might be thinking, head cheese, is this actually like cheese from the head? What's going on? No, it is not. But this is the term, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Again, another product consumed all around the world. Why? Because guess what? You just don't have the money to say, yeah, we're just going to throw that head away. We're just going to look. I'm just actually just going to take the loins. I killed the whole animal. I just need the loins. See you later, suckers. I mean, this is not doing any justice to an animal, the life it's lived, the farmer that raised it, the feed that went into it, the water that went into it, the time and energy that's spent to raise that animal. Okay? Go be a vegetarian then, if we don't want to have respect for the animals that we're utilizing. Okay? Seriously. You got to honor it. You can't just take stuff for granted. We have to be thinking, hey, we need to be sustainable. How do we save? How do we utilize? So here is head cheese. All right. As you can see, nice little chunks of meat usually. And then you have gelatin that's forming this kind of loaf. Here, most of you all know boar's head. Even boar's head has a head cheese. This can't be that crazy if boar's head, which is a pretty famous delicatessen, supplier of deli meats, if they have a head cheese, I'm guessing, and they even sell it at H-E-B for those of you in the Southwest region, all right? So this isn't crazy stuff. Now, it might be if you don't grow up with it. It might be if you never try it. We can have aversions to it. But once you embrace this and just say, hey, let's go for it, you try it out. I was not prepared for that when I was doing this Matanza, and they said, hey, you got to try the brains. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. I had never eaten brain before. And here I am thinking like, okay, he's like, you're a chef. How can you not? And I was like, you are right. Okay. Sprinkle a little salt on it, similar to scrambled eggs. Next up is you have to eat a part of the heart. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. Now I'm going to eat the heart. Well, yep. Little squirt of lemon and salt. You know what? It was delightful. Okay? And not a piece of that animal went to waste. And it is performed every year, pretty much ceremonially. And the whole family lives off that pig. From the sausages to the cured meats to then the fresh meat to chuletas, the chops, everything. Okay? It's utilization. It's also a time for coming together. Okay? With the community, your family. So before we get deeper into the liver rabbit hole, I want to let Chef Lee give her experience with livers, because we all have different experiences. So Chef Lee, you want to talk a little bit about your liver experience?
I will talk about the livers. Growing up, there were 4 kids at home, and on our birthday, we got to ask for our favorite meal. My mom would make it. And my sister's favorite meal was fried chicken livers. And I tried them. I tried them repeatedly, and it's just not something I do well with, to put it mildly. And so I kind of took that mindset with me into my adulthood, and there were things I just was unwilling to try, like beets, which, every time I had them as a kid, they were awful. So when I was in culinary school and working in a restaurant, I had to try things. I had to try the beets that I was cooking for service, and I learned to like those. And in culinary school, we cooked kidneys. I think they were beef kidneys, and the thought of eating them was pretty repulsive to me, just because of this mindset that I had. However, I tried them, and they were delicious. They were amazing. And Chef Catherine's right. It has a lot to do with the way they're prepared. So I would encourage you, if it sounds off-putting, to try something new, to try different kinds of offal. Try and push through it. And as a student, I graded an assignment today, and the student said he had to muster every ounce of strength to taste what he had prepared, because he did not care for the main ingredient. And I commended him on that, because as chefs, we do have to push through and try new things. So the takeaway that I had was great. And, there's still things that you'll try that you will love, and others that you're not particularly fond of. But being open to it, I think, is a big part of the journey as a chef.
All right. 100%. So give it a taste, give it a try. And yeah, Chef?
I still don't eat fried chicken livers, by the way. But I've learned to like certain kinds of pate. So, there's that.
See, and there you go. You're going to try things, and you're going to say, you know what? I liked it that way. I didn't like it this way. That's okay. The point is, you got to try it, and try it once, try it twice. Don't just have it once and walk away. Give it another go. Maybe you didn't have it prepared to the best of its ability. Maybe you didn't like the spices that were used in it. Maybe you're going to like it in another form or fashion. Okay. One of the most unique pieces of offal out there in the high-end fine dining world is a thing called foie gras. Okay, so foie gras is the fattened liver of a duck. Now, traditionally, this hails from the region of Southwest France, Tuscany, the Sud-West, all right, famous for their ducks, right? We're going to be making chicken confit, but traditionally it would be made duck confit. And the same region is well known for the fattened duck liver. Okay. Now, there have been some controversies. It's actually a really cool subject in the world of the restaurants, okay? Because first of all, I'm gonna give you a visual of what foie gras looks like for anybody that doesn't, and you're gonna see what type of presentation we're looking at. This is no joke. And if you ever see it on a menu, give it a go. Experience it. You might not like it. You might be blown away that you freaking love it and you can't even believe that it's liver. All right, like I can't believe it's not butter. Can't believe it's liver. Okay, so check this out. It's pretty incredible. This is foie gras, okay? And it's at some of its finest. As you can see, it can be turned into, more of like a terrine of potted meat. You've got this beautiful sear. This is what it looks like raw. You have a lobe, okay? Now, foie gras is extremely expensive, okay? Here's a torchon of foie gras, all right? There's your seared foie gras. It pairs wonderfully. Now, so it's super fatty, pairs wonderfully with some jams or mustard, something a little nutty. It's insanely spreadable, and it's extremely high in fat. So when you sear something like this, foie gras, you are basically getting a blazing hot saute pan. And I'm talking about blazing hot. And you're throwing that, you're putting that lobe in there, and it is going to sear, sizzle, and you're pretty much pulling it out as soon as that, because it's such high fat content that otherwise literally will just melt away. If you leave it in that pan too long, it's gonna just melt, all right? Now, getting back into a little bit, just a touch on the history of foie gras and the restaurant world. This is what's so interesting. It has gone from stages of being outlawed, right? Saying, do away with foie gras, don't serve that in restaurants, this is animal cruelty, this is PETA. PETA's coming in and saying, you're hurting these ducks, how can you do that? To New York City recently saying, you know what, we're gonna fine dining restaurants. Actually, that law was supposed to go in place either 2021 or 2020, and they said, we're gonna be fining any restaurant that has foie gras on their restaurant. It was banned from California, I think it might still be. It was banned from Chicago, and they said, are you kidding me? We're worried about saying you can't serve foie gras when we've got crooked people in the government. What are we doing? There are more important things to be talking about. So the reason why they said this was mean is because these ducks are force-fed. All right. So basically, the only way you can get a really fatty liver is if you're just literally eating hours a day, just stuffing it in there. But the cool thing is, a duck does not have any gag reflex, so it's not really having any pain. And if you look at one, I'll send this out, but Hudson Valley Foie Gras is an extremely humane resource for foie gras. You can see that these ducks live out in nature. They're having a good life, and yeah, they're eating a lot, but they live a wonderful life. And it's a different thing, because back in the day they used to do some gruesome things to the ducks, like staple them, nail them down to the floor. But that's not how this works anymore. Times have changed, right? The industry has changed. So, all right, enough about offal. Just kidding. That's all we're talking about today. So, it's incredible to think, some people say, oh, I don't eat those cuts of meat. That's for poor people. That's what some people say too, right? Okay. Well, why is it, if this is poor people food, then why is it showing up on fine dining restaurants and being charged $30 a plate, $15 a plate? Is this really, or was it just shunned at one point because we favoritized the larger cuts of mussels because they were easier to cook, and the other cuts took a lot of time? So you have to make that slow stew, right? It's something that's going to be simmering all day in a back pot. All right. We have to stop thinking and associating, things with different types of people, or like that's what somebody eats, that's what this is. Food is food, and we are constantly evolving and changing. All right. But I'll tell you this much: you wouldn't be seeing if chicken livers were, for poor people, then why are we seeing that trending on almost every single restaurant that's farm to table these days? It's a high-end, luxurious product if you process it correctly. That's the beauty of it. That's the magic of it, actually. And lo and behold, like I'll say again, loaded with nutrients. Absolutely loaded with nutrients. Because all of these organs, right, these are organs that are working hard, all right? They're processing constantly. So it needs a lot of love and care, the correct processing, and good execution. All right. So does anybody have any questions? I don't think I really said anything that might need questions yet. We're going to hop into the recipe, but did anybody have any questions? No? Okay. I did get access to the site, Saved by the Bell. So we're going to hop into there and walk through this, and then we can explore. So for this week, you will be making pate, chicken liver pate. If you cannot find chicken livers, first, a few suggestions on that. One, call ahead to stores. Don't waste your time driving around, can't find it, call ahead, all right? Number two, maybe the HEB has it, but maybe also you have a better chance of finding it at a local market that's more Asian influence driven or Mexican, right? A grocery that is carrying products with cultures that utilize these products on a more regular basis, okay? Also, check in the freezer. Sometimes they are frozen and they'll come in a tub. So if you can't find chicken liver, any other liver will be, you can substitute, all right? Give calls around so you're not wasting your time. And in addition to your chicken livers, which here's the recipe we'll be going through right now, you're also gonna be making crackers. So why crackers? Because you're gonna spread this lovely pate on them and enjoy it maybe perhaps with a glass of French wine, some red wine, right? Make yourself your own little high-end charcuterie board. Have some fun with it. Enjoy it. So let's first hop into the chicken liver. Now, one reason why a lot of people don't like liver is because they haven't taken the first step, which is soaking it in dairy, whether it's milk or buttermilk. You want to make sure you're soaking your chicken liver. So first you trim the fat in those sinews, right? You're going to have little pieces. Here, let's bring up a visual. All right. So some of these, actually a lot of these have been trimmed pretty well. Here we go. See that little fat nobule right there? That's what you're going to want to be taken off. Sinew is like this little thin, almost like just this thin casing, all right, or a little stronger line of tough material that's going to be on that chicken liver. You want to trim it all from that because that's not going to break down and cook up nicely, all right? And then you're gonna go ahead and soak this overnight, right? You put a little salt on that and soak it overnight in milk. What do you all think that soaking it in milk is gonna do? What does that milk do? The milk's gonna turn pink overnight, by the way. Does anybody have any ideas? I can't see the chat. I know people have been in the chat, but I've not been able to look at that yet.
Starts to break it down.
It does in some sense, but more importantly, what it's doing is it's drawing out some extra blood and extra harsher flavor profiles. Now, you're right in general, like a yogurt or a buttermilk is going to tenderize meat, but in this case, it's really about pulling out some of those impurities and slightly off and more aggressive flavors. It's going to help mellow it out. All right. So don't skip this step, all right? All right. Now, once you do that overnight, right? That's that, okay? Next day, what are we gonna do? We've got 2 ounces of onion chopped. We've got butter, dried oregano, our spices, all right? This is gonna create our flavor profile for the pate. And you're gonna slowly cook that onion, then drain and rinse those livers, toss those in, all right? Get some browning on there, all right? Nice color. Now, you don't want to overcook your livers so they're tough. You just want to get them nicely cooked, all right? And if this is your first time cooking liver, that's okay. Just break one open. It's all going to get mashed together, all right? It's all going to get blended. So if you're cooking it, you've got some nice brown developed, you know, take one, take your, you know, spoon and cut it open and see how's the cooking progressing. Okay, that's okay. Check it out. Look, that way you start to understand those observations, right? Constantly knowing, hey, does this have to cook for a long time or a short time? All right. Then pull them off, let them cool, and now it's time for the blender. This is a very simple and straightforward recipe. Okay. You're gonna add your cream cheese. Okay. And your optional brandy or port, sherry. It is optional for cost reasons. If you can afford it and it's in your budget or you've got some, highly suggest using it. It's going to add, does anybody know what these flavors, what a brandy, a Madeira, a port, or a sherry might add? What do we think those flavors it's gonna add to the liver? I see smoky and spices, some spices, sweetness, some subtle warm spice notes will come through as well, okay? And it's just gonna kind of round out the entire pate, okay? Because we're not gonna be cooking that. It's just there as a background. When we think about flambeing or cooking with alcohol, we cook it and the alcohol comes off and we're left with some of that flavor. This one is just a small amounts, but it's gonna go in there and it's gonna add this nice depth to it, okay? And then you're going to, you know, add salt to taste. And then the next important thing is putting that in the fridge and letting it sit overnight, because it is going to set, it's gonna firm up. All right, this should not be, when we look at those photos, we wanna see that it's set and firmed, because you're not really eating pate straight out of the blender. You're waiting till it's chilled, it's cold, your texture is gonna completely change and improve. Now, a few things to note. For substitutions, white pepper, if you got black pepper, that's fine. It's more about, you're not gonna see specks in there, all right, little black specks. If you need to substitute one of these nutmeg, ginger, or cloves, just adjust the other one or omit it, okay? But these are warm spices, which are gonna play really nicely into that liquor that you're using, all right? And they're all gonna go together nicely. But if you don't have one of those, you know, you're a pinch. So, you know, balance it off with another one or omit the one. Again, you really wanna make sure you've got this 3-day process, all right? Because you're soaking them overnight in milk, then you're cooking them, then overnight again, and then they're ready. And we're gonna be able to tell the texture. Now, your best bet is using a blender or a food processor. Chef Lee and myself, we're having a conversation about this as well, texture-wise. So there's a country pate, which is not as blended, not as smooth. So if for some reason your blender doesn't work that well, that happens, your blades are dull, or you don't have access to that, you can make a rustic country pate, but it's not gonna have the smoothness, all right? You're gonna have a bit more chunky to it, right? When we think about country or rustic, it's just not as, you know, soft and smooth around the edges, apparently, right? So that's what you can kind of associate that, right? When you think of like a country pate versus a pate, that's gonna be that difference, the consistency. Does anybody have a question? I see Robert asking about.
I wasn't sure if you could see that in the chat.
Yeah. Yes, about self-ID. Great question, Robert. You know, that first day, you're gonna be doing it. You're gonna just have that ID. You got your sanitation. We're gonna wanna see that. You know, on the 3rd day, you'll need it for your 1st and 2nd day. On the 3rd day, you're eating and enjoying. So, because that's when you'd be pulling it out of the fridge, no requirements for that. But would love to see that, you know, if you should be doing the proper sanitation every day because you are working with a raw product, right? Sanitation, you're working with livers. You want to make sure that you're keeping things safe and sanitary. Get your solution correct, be in your uniform, you know, good to go. And that should be that. All right. Did anybody else have any questions regarding executing the liver pate before we hop onto crackers? No? All right. Well, let's hop into crackers. Cooking sherry. So as we talked about before, cooking sherry will work, but it's going to be salty, right? So when you use cooking wine or cooking sherry, something that specifically says it's cooking wine or cooking sherry, it's not going to have the best flavor, right? Because they've been adding salt to it because it doesn't have a great flavor. But if that's what you have on hand, I would reduce that a little bit because first of all, the salt content's going to be in there and you might not love that flavor profile. So my suggestion, put a little bit on a spoon, taste it, and then gauge accordingly, right? Maybe I only want to put like a splash of there in there before I add too much and whoops, botched it, right? After you spend all this time, you know, multiple tape process. Just a splash, I would start with that, but taste it first. Always taste something before you're putting it in so you know how aggressive it is. Just like vinegars. Vinegars can be really sharp or super mellow, and it depends upon the pH balance and what type of and style of vinegar it is. All right, good. Well, send me a list and I'll pick one out for you, Tara, all right? All right. Okay, so let's hop into these crackers now. This is a fairly simple and straightforward recipe for executing crackers. I know you've all done some dough work before in CU 122, but this is a little bit different in the sense that, what do you notice the biggest difference between some doughs, right, versus a cracker dough? What does a cracker dough not have? No yeast, margaritas on the chat like nobody else. All right. Yeah, no leavener, exactly. So we do not need to let this rise, which is great. Okay. But what do we also know about dough? We might not have to let it rise, but we want to it's another R word, rest. Yes, exactly. And why is that? Gluten, yes. All right, we need to let that gluten relax. We want it to let it chill out a little bit so that when we're rolling it, it's not fighting us. Because if you rush the process, it's gonna fight you. It's just the nature of the beast, all right? So here we go. You're gonna heat that oven up, all right, to 450. You're gonna want some parchment paper on there, and basically really simple. Dry ingredients, okay? Add your wet ingredients, mix until combined. Now, a few observations to make. If you, first of all, measuring. Measure is important, right? If you don't fill that 3 cup, your cups of that flour, and you dump in all that fat and water, and you're going around, now, dough will be tacky a little bit, but we don't want to see a big messy ball where it's stuck to your fingers, all right? If the dough is sticking to your fingers, you're going to want to add a little bit more flour. Sorry, I just saw Natalia's question in it. No, we cannot. I'll tell you why in a second. You're going to need to add a little bit more flour, okay? So that you get the right consistency. Now, if you for some reason have a really dry dough and you see that it's not coming together, what do we do? How do we correct that?
Add fat.
You could add fat. More likely, you're going to want to add water, right? You want to add a little bit of water before you start adding fat. Just because you don't want, if you add too much fat, you're going to get a greasy finished product. Okay? While water will work better with that flour. But I like where you're going with that, Robert. Now, when you do it, you just want it, pretty much you would dip your hand in a little bowl and flick it like this, all right, until you get the right amount of water. You don't want to dump. You're going to have too much of a chance for error. Lightly, right? Same if you're adding flour. You're not dumping a whole other cup in there. You're taking a little bit on your hands. You're sprinkling it over, all right, and you start to work it, okay? Moving through, next thing. Once you get that dough rolled out, separate it in two, roll it out into, nice planks, about 1/8 of an inch thick. Remember, if you keep it 1/4 of an inch thick, you're gonna have some really fat crackers, all right? It's not what we're looking for. 1/8 of an inch, okay? That's pretty thin. You're gonna wanna roll it out, okay? Now, the next thing, you cut those your crackers into desired shape, right? Obviously, rectangles you're gonna maximize, but if you wanna do circles, you can, or some other little cutter that you have. Now, why does it say prick the crackers with a fork? What does that do? Does anybody know what that's gonna do? So they don't bubble up and to reduce steam. Yes, stops from bubbling, allows it to vent, right? That dough is gonna get hot. And by pricking it, now this is called docking, D-O-C-K-I-N-G in the pastry terms, all right? There's even like a specific docker that you can roll on your dough, it's great. The tines of a fork will do just a good job as well. Now, this doesn't need to be aggressive. When you think about looking at a club cracker or a Ritz cracker, what do you see? You see a few holes in there, right? But it's not like hacked to the end, right? Just enough little pricks to let that steam escape so you don't get bubbly and irregular shapes on your crackers. And then pop that right onto your tray, bake it. Again, this will be the 3rd time that I'm saying this. Know your oven, check it before, look for hot spots. Have you figured it out yet? Is that back left corner hotter? Do you need to rotate the pan, midway through? Okay, you wanna get even browning. So go check that. Check it at 6 minutes, peek in. You don't need to open the door because you don't want to drop the temp, but you can look into that oven. Turn the light on, check it out, right? See how's it coming along. Go back, check at 10. All right, are we good? Do we need to switch it? What's going on? All right. Baking is a process. Until you know that recipe in the oven and you're cooking on there every single time, you're not going to have a good instinct of when is it done. So you got to go in and check it. All right. Then you're going to pull them out, throw them on a cooling rack, and let them cool. And we know, just like the granola, we're not throwing them into a container. We're going to let them chill to room temp so that they don't then get steamed when we put them in the cracker and lose all this work you've done. Okay? So now, question. I know Natalia was asking about adding flavor. Once you get familiar with this process, go for it. If you want to make one batch with that is as the recipe states and make another batch that has a different seasoning, go for it. Again, here in Culinary Care, we want to make sure we understand and know those techniques and the process before we start, tweaking it, okay? Then you say, okay, I've got this neutral, beautiful cracker. What do I want to do with it the next time? Do I want to add herbs? Do I want to use a garlic olive oil? Do I want to sprinkle Parmesan cheese at the last minute or 2 minutes to get a cheese cracker? Do I want to incorporate cheese into my dough? But first, we really want to make sure we're getting that basic and understanding that. Additionally, you're going to taste the cracker, a neutral cracker, right? And this pate. So they go together nicely. That's why we're have you make them in conjunction, all right? But I like where your head's at, Natalia. Always be thinking about forward, and that's where you go in your narrative. What would you do differently next time? I want to put my everything everything seasoning, right? Everything but the bagel seasoning people love these days, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Nobody? Everything bagel? Okay, Gina got me.
Oh, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Oh, okay, two. Everything bagel. It's great, actually. So, and then you have some fun. Oh, ranch seasoning. So now you're, see, exactly. If we were putting ranch with that pate, it's like, woo, cowboy. I don't know what's going on. But might as well, right? So yes, a ton of different flavorings that you can have fun with once you learn this basic, and then have some fun with it. I always support experimenting and checking out different flavor profiles, but we want to get that basic knocked down first. Does anybody have any questions regarding the cracker? No? Does anybody have any questions regarding the assignment? Let me just throw up the required photos so that we're all on that same page, and then I'll cut you loose. I know we did start a few minutes early today, late. So, obviously, Sani bucket for that first day when you're sanitizing. If you don't have a self ID for that first day, I'm okay with that. As long as you have a Sani bucket with that for the first day of just, trimming and soaking your chicken liver pate. But mise en place, still some people are falling short on that. That means mise en place, everything is in its place, everything's ready to go. You're ready for action, all right? Liver's trimmed, fat and sinew, soaking, strained, your onion sauteed, onion with liver, ground livers, pate before chilling, right, in your containers, and finished pate. That means after chilling, all right? There's gonna be a massive difference in the pate structure. So start this ahead of time because otherwise it's gonna look different. Yes, you can mold it any way you want. If you wanna put it in a ramekin, if you wanna put it in another mold that you have, a small like rectangular pan, and then line it with saran wrap. So this is how you do it if you don't know about shapes, but put some saran wrap inside a mold, and then that way you can invert it and pull it out, and you're going to have that nice mold if you're not serving it within that ramekin. And then the last thing to mention is, I just want to pull up this. Start thinking about if you've never had one at a restaurant. Charcuterie boards are huge, right? This is where you can really showcase a lot of house-made products, which is awesome. Let's go into these images. You'll often find either local or artisanal sausages on there, some house-made pate, house-made cheese, different types of crudité. I want to do one with pate. Let's see if we can get this. Here, this is what I'm talking about. This one's a little bit, you can kind of see, right? This is simple, but I'm pulling this up because you get to see all these things. Here's pate in that bowl. You'll see that there is that firmness that's developed. Some sausages, prosciutto, looks like another type of a loaf, a terrine. We've got a terrine in here, all right? And then some cured meat, really just delightful. Make yourself up a little charcuterie board if you want. In week 9, we are going to be making some other preserved goods, and it's just something to think about down the road, right? Lots of fun to be had with this. I will send out some cool reads about offal trending in the restaurant industry and how it's not stopping, and it's not going to stop, all right? Because we are going back to better and more sustainable ways, which is awesome. And if you do have questions, reach out. If you cannot find chicken or beef liver, reach out to me. We will have a solution for you, okay? But really try and give it your go. Call around to stores before you waste time. And most importantly of all, enjoy. Chef Lee?
I know I have purchased chicken livers at a bait shop before for fishing or crabbing. Do not use those. They're not food safe.
I love that. Yes, do not use those. Get them from a fresh source, all right? Not for bait, all right? Chef Lee and her tendency to dislike chicken liver is really coming out strong, all right?
I love the fish. What can I say?
Awesome. All right, class. Always thank you for showing up. Sorry for the technical difficulties we had earlier. Reach out with questions and plugging along week 7. All right. Take care.
Chef, quick question.
Yeah.
I was walking in and out because I had an issue with my washer and dryer right now.
Okay.
When are we having our class for tomorrow? What time?
Oh yeah. Hey, Chef Lee.
Same bat time, same bat channel. 5 p.m. Central. We'll
I like
be
that.
here.
And then also, if anybody has a great duck pate recipe, can you send it over?
And like another pate recipe, did you say?
Because I like duck.
Oh, okay. Great. Yeah. Well, also, hey, if you all like, if somebody is like, hey, I want to push myself, check out in your book, right? Remember, your book is located up at the top of the page. You have access to that. Put in foie gras, put in pate.
Yeah.
You're going to get a ton of tested and tried recipes loaded in the textbook.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you can definitely do that. I just know the recipe that you guys are using for the chicken liver pate it doesn't translate for duck liver.
That's what
Is
I
that
was
right, Chef? Because of the heat. So make sure you're looking for one that's specific to duck liver.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great one.
Thank you. Gregory, I see that yeah.
I was going to say, if anybody actually bought the book, there's an online database connected through a CD or through an activation code to that book that you can use to search for recipes.
There is.
Based on type of food, course, whatever your region, whatever you want. It gives you the actual recipe there and then the page number in the book that you can use.
Awesome. Thank you.
It is really nice. And one thing that I didn't hear you mention was haggis.
Oh yeah, haggis is in there too, of course. Haggis
is wonderful.
Haggis
I spent 2 weeks in Scotland and England 2 years ago and had some haggis. And then before we left, I had a full English breakfast with blood sausage.
excellent, my friend.
It was very good.
Yeah, see, and that's what it's all about. When we travel, we got to try the local dish, man. All right. Without it, we're missing out on a whole flavor profile. So,
unfortunately, we didn't get to go to Germany this year. So,
well,
it would have been a trip back for me because I've been there. My dad was in the service, so we spent 6 years over there.
Okay.
So I got to eat a lot of stuff when I was over there. I want to go back.
Awesome. Oh, I'll tell you, I'm when we can't, okay, I'm just going to stop recording so that people don't keep listening. I'm just stop this.